Welcome back. It's holiday edition this week because I'm on holidays. It's way too hot. I'm in the shadows, but it's still 11 a.m. So here we go.
Hi everyone. I'm not on holiday, but I'm here too. The first question. In your book, you write about the attachment of the muscles to the inside or the outside of the upper arm of the big arm bone. And you write that there is a difference in significance when it comes to tension if the muscle is attached on the inside, on the outside. Can you explain why that is significant for tension?
hmm Okay, let's dial back for a second. So in the book, um, there's one goal in training that you cannot train for unless you combine stuff together, which is so the end goal of training, what we want to create, what we're seeing in training, if it's not happening, is torque. The problem with torque is you cannot just create torque and be happy about it. So we have to reverse the problem, be like, okay, what do I see if torque is missing? And that we all know because that means there's bones displacing. So that means your shoulders rolling forward, your elbows are coming in or coming out, whatever the exercise is, or your knees are caving in. So this is a lack of torque. Um, the challenge is you cannot correct missing torque with a position. So let's stick with the knee for a second. If you see your knee rolling in on a squat, you cannot just correct it with push your knees out. And let me explain why. I think this is a super important concept to understand because that's why exercises don't matter and we have to start solving problems. So there's three elements for torque. The first one is position, the second one is tension. Those two create rotation, and all three together will lead to you creating more torque in training, right? So what does that mean? Let's go for the squat, the knees caving in for a second. The position is super simple. We'll start with the neutral hip. We want to have tension in the glute max first. That will lead to external rotation because if you stand tall and squeeze your booty, that's a neutral hip. This will automatically lead to your big thigh bone rotating to the outside. You can try this right now. This is not a scam. This is not a fluke. Once you squeeze your booty, standing tall, your big thigh bone is gonna excellently rotate. So the challenge for us now is that's pretty much super simple standing tall, but it's you have to practice this when you have to move your hips somewhere. Let's take the squat for example. Um, this needs the practice part. Um, if the knees are caving in, torque is missing. So I have to go back to training to position. That means where are my knees on the, for example, box squat? Can I engage my glute max in all three different kind of jobs? Is that the rotation? Is that creating the rotation I need? And this will lead to torque at the end. The misconception here is, and for whatever reason that started in the fitness industry, is just because you see your knee caving in, you cannot simply correct it with position of pushing it out. This is why those attachments are so important. Okay, that was a long intro, but I think it's worth talking about it. The second one is so position is, let's call it a static force, right? So you have to position your bones somewhere, you have to keep them there throughout the movement. Tension is also super simple. Tension is a pulling force. So that means your muscle is going to either lengthen, shorten, or stay at the same time, stay at the same place. And the third one, rotation is, as the name's suggesting it, it's a rotational force. So once you combine it, the static force with the pulling force and the rotational force, you can create stuff, torque, that we need in training. And this is the step-by-step approach that I'm teaching in the book and teaching in training. This is what we're looking for. All right, here comes the twisting part of it. Twisting and pulling. That's why it's so important where muscles are attached. One big example. Let's take rotator cuff versus the lats. We have to control the shoulder blades and the big arm bone in the shoulder. Cool. The rotator cuff muscles are attaching on the outside of the shoulder blade and on the outside of the big arm bone. So that means there's both on the outside. Whenever you move your arm, they can get on tension, but they cannot create tension. Does that make sense? So they're more of a whatever, an assistant, whatever you want to call it. In comparison and in stark difference to either the teres major or the lat dorsi, which is on the inside of the big arm bone and on the outside of the shoulder blade. Okay, this sounds super complicated, but it's not, because if those two attachments are on the other sides, and once you start twisting, so that means rotation sets in, that's where you can gain full access to tension and torque in the muscles required. Long as answer, try this out right now. Okay, so do a push-up, start on your fist, grab a towel if you're uncomfortable doing it on your wrist, it's totally fine, but start supinated. So that means when you start here, so your palm is pointing, here's the camera, is pointing away from you. All right. And once you do your push-up, you're gonna end up in the pronated position, right? This is what we're looking for. This is the very practical application of position of your shoulder plus tension that controls rotation in your shoulder, and that will lead to torque eventually. Try it out, especially if you have shoulder problems. This is what we're looking for.
Maybe that's a dumb question, but what if you start in like pronated and you push yourself up and you end in a supinated position? Is that the same thing pretty much, or does it play a role if you start like that or like that?
Yes. Yes. That goes maybe a little bit far, but the short answer is we always want to start creating tension towards the inside. So that means if you start supinated and end up pronated, this is creating tension towards the inside. You could do the other way around, but that's exactly the opposite, right?
Okay.
And if you're looking at natural movements like punching, for example, this always goes towards tension towards the inside. Heard a fun comment on that, except fake Chinese kung fu movies, right? Because they always punch to the outside. But that's not happening in real life. If you ever want to punch somebody, punch them towards the inside and not towards the outside.
There you have it. Good life advice.